Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your entire country is broke. Not low on cash, not running a deficit, actually unable to pay what it owes. No alarms go off, no global sirens, markets still open, people still go to work, and yet, behind the scenes, everything is already changed. That uncomfortable truth matters right now because more countries than ever are living on borrowed time, not borrowed money, borrowed confidence. Governments owe sums so large that paying them back the normal way is no longer realistic. But the system doesn't collapse immediately. It bends, quietly, creatively, and often painfully. So what really happens when a nation owes more than it can pay? First, let's clear a myth. Countries don't run out of money the way people do. They don't get a final warning letter. There's no single due date where the lights go out. Sovereign debt is a rolling promise. Old debt gets replaced with new debt. Bonds mature, new bonds are issued, and the hope is that growth, inflation, or time will make the problem smaller. As long as investors believe the country will eventually figure it out, the game continues. That belief is everything. Here's how the system actually works. When a government needs money, it sells bonds. Investors buy them because they expect to get paid back with interest. The interest rate reflects trust. Low rates mean confidence. High rates mean fear. Now imagine that debt grows faster than the economy. Every year, more borrowing is required just to pay interest on old borrowing. At first, it feels manageable. The numbers look big but abstract. Trillions don't feel real. Then comes the moment that changes everything. Investors start asking a simple question. Can this country realistically pay us back without destroying itself? If the answer feels uncertain, interest rates rise. That makes borrowing more expensive, which makes the debt grow faster, which scares investors more. This is the spiral. At this stage, governments usually try three things. Option 1, raise taxes and cut spending. On paper, it's responsible. In reality, it slows the economy, angers voters, and often reduces tax revenue instead of increasing it. You squeeze the system, and it shrinks. Option 2, borrow even more. This buys time. Politically, it's attractive. Nothing visibly breaks today. The cost is pushed into the future, where someone else will deal with it. Option 3, use the central bank. This is where things get quietly strange. If a country controls its own currency, its central bank can step in and buy government debt. Technically, this prevents default. Practically, it creates money to do it. No dramatic announcement, just numbers added to balance sheets. This is often described as printing money, but it doesn't look like trucks full of cash. It looks clean, digital, boring. The uncomfortable math shows up later. More money chasing the same economy means prices rise, slowly at first, then unevenly. Assets inflate before wages do. Housing gets expensive, food follows, savings lose purchasing power. No one calls this default, but functionally it is one. Instead of failing to pay creditors outright, the country pays them back with weaker money. The debt is honored in name, diluted in reality. Here's the irony. This approach can work for a long time, especially for large, powerful economies. As long as their currency is trusted globally, inflation can be exported. Foreign investors absorb part of the cost. The pain is spread. Smaller or weaker countries don't get that luxury. When confidence breaks completely, the script changes fast. Investors refuse to lend. The currency falls sharply. Imports become expensive overnight. Inflation turns into a daily concern, not an economic concept. At that point, international institutions arrive with emergency loans. The money comes with conditions, spending cuts, reforms, austerity. The government loses control over major decisions. This is the moment people usually think of as default, but the real collapse happened earlier when trust disappeared. Publicly, governments frame debt as manageable. They point to ratios, projections, long-term plans. Technically, they're not lying. Systems can survive enormous stress. Privately, the incentives are brutal. No leader wants to be in office when the reckoning happens, so the goal becomes delay.
extend maturities, restructure quietly, shift the burden slowly enough that it doesn't look like a crisis. The gap between the story and the reality widens. Zoom out far enough and you see the pattern. Debt doesn't end countries overnight, it reshakes them. Power moves away from voters and towards creditors, markets, and central banks. Choices narrow, flexibility disappears. A nation that owes more than it can pay isn't immediately bankrupt, it's constrained. Every decision is made with invisible hands on the steering wheel. The final risk isn't just inflation or default, it's normalization. When permanent debt becomes normal, short-term stability is chosen over long-term resilience, again and again. And that leaves one question hanging. If the system survives by postponing the cost, who exactly is it being postponed for, and who eventually pays it?